Life is weird sometimes. I got out of bed yesterday thinking, what are we going to talk about today? It's July. There's not much going on. A day off at Steeler camp, and all hell breaks loose everywhere. I'm Guy Junker with Josh Taylor here. Ken Laird is traveling up to St. Vincent. Maybe we'll hear from him a little later on today. He'll be back with us tomorrow for the full show. But the Penguins make a couple of deals. The Pirates win a really wild game. And in the NFL, suspension, one lifted, one upheld. Both affect the Steelers, and both have been something that people have been talking about for months. I'm not surprised the Brady suspension was upheld. I'm surprised Le'Veon Bell got a game cut.
If you would have told me that 2 suspensions would be dealt with yesterday and that the one that would be reduced was Le'Veon Bell's, I would have laughed at you. I would have thought you were crazy because I figured with Le'Veon Bell, what he did and what the punishment were pretty cut and dry. You know? There was a certain rule in the CBA. There was a certain punishment levied in the CBA, but Le'Veon Bell appealed it. Sounds like he owned up to what he did, and they reduced his suspension by 1 game. On the other hand, Tom Brady, his offense was not as severe, if you even consider it offense by most standards. But the problem was, when we find out later on that Brady destroyed his phone the day he was supposed to be interviewed by the league, then you find out, well, maybe it's not about the crime, maybe it's about the cover-up. And it's so egregious of a cover-up that they had to do something. And it looks like it's now more and more the league is saying, look, we don't care as much what you did for the actual crime, so to speak. The problem is we're upset about how you tried to cover it up. And it's becoming more and more blatant and more arrogant and more obvious that he just has no desire to fess up to what he did. Whether it's severe or not isn't the issue. It's about what he's doing to try to avoid owning up to it.
Let's get back to Brady in a second. I don't know, what were your expectations of D'Angelo Williams? I feel a little better about needing him 2 games instead of 3. It's been a good back, but, and he played, I think, 6, maybe 7 games last year because of injuries. He's been around a while. Our Joe Starkey asked him about the tread left on his tires the other day, and he got kind of ticked off. So, I've been sharing carries my whole career. I've got plenty of tread left. Well, if you got plenty of tread left, why didn't you play less than half the games last year? But my point is, I don't know what you expected out of him. But another sort of side thing is Bell's now allowed to work out at the facility even while he's suspended, which I didn't think he was. He can't practice with the team, but he's allowed to be around, allowed to work out, and I think it just seems not nearly as bad. He'll miss the San Francisco home opener, he'll miss the New England road opener, and he'll be back for the St. Louis game.
And that's a good thing for the Steelers. I think that shows. I think that gives the very big message out there. If you did something, just own up to it. And the punishment won't be as severe. It's something you learn as a kid. If you knocked over the lamp in the living room, if you lied about it, you probably got in trouble worse for lying about it, not because you knocked the lamp over. So in the Steelers' case, they're able to get Le'Veon Bell back a day earlier. And to the point about D'Angelo Williams, I'm not really worried about it because when you're able to play for as long as he has, and he's played at a pretty decent level, albeit sharing time. Last season was one of those few seasons where he didn't get to play the full year because of an injury. Otherwise, he's played double-digit games or more in each season throughout his career. And he's been pretty productive doing it. People forget. They had 2 1,100-yard backs in Carolina that season with him and Jonathan Stewart. So we know he can play at a pretty decent level. So that I'm not worried about. And the fact that you're going to get Le'Veon Bell back a game earlier, I think it actually spells well for the Steelers offense. But to your point, D'Angelo Williams for 2 games, I don't mind it. I don't mind the thought of him playing 2 games. I think he's capable enough running the football. Where Le'Veon Bell will be missed is in the passing game. Because Williams can run the ball well, we know that. But he's not as voluminous as a receiver as Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell got targeted 103 times last year. Right. I don't think people realize that. They threw to him 103 times. You're not going to see anything close to that kind of per-game average with D'Angelo Williams. So, obviously, the passing game will be affected. But as far as the running game, I think it'll be just fine.
Well, the Brady situation, I think he's going to play in the opener anyway. And I think the NFL is getting exactly what it really wants, if truth be told. They look like Roger Goodell stood up to him. We're not taking back any of the suspension, nor should they. I agree with everything you said about him being the cell phone thing. Just is the final nail in the coffin. It makes it worse. If it, in a court of law, does that make you guilty? It's circumstantial evidence, but certainly in my mind, if you destroy the one thing that could show that you were innocent, you destroyed it. Well, what's that tell you?
It makes you look guilty. Even if you aren't, it makes you look guilty, and that's the problem.
But the league now looks like it stood up to Tom Brady, and he's going to challenge challenge it in court, and then it probably gets into abeyance, and he'll be able to play to start the season. So the Steelers probably wind up facing him anyway, unless the team talks him into saying, look, even if you drag this out, and then even if it's a 2-game suspension and it comes in December and the Dolphins are a game behind us at the time in the division standings, maybe it'd be better off taking your punishment now and dealing with it. Look, the Steelers had a 4-game suspension to Ben Roethlisberger to start the season. They go 3-1 and they go to the Super Bowl that year. So you can survive it, especially early.
And in the end, it becomes one 6-month-long win-win that probably could have been resolved in, 3 hours? So we wasted 6 months of our lives. Thanks, guys.
And 10 hours meeting with the commissioner.